When Clara James woke up in the sterile white room of the hospital, her body ached, but her heart was calm. She had just donated one of her kidneys, not to a friend or a family member, but to a stranger. A stranger whose identity she didn't even know. To her, it didn't matter. Saving a life was reason enough. Clara was a nurse, young, humble, and devoted to her work. She had lost her mother to kidney failure years ago, and when she saw a patient's name appear on the donor match list, something inside her told her it was fate. The man's name was Ethan Cole. She didn't know anything about him. She never cared to ask. On the other side of the hospital, Ethan lay in a private room surrounded by machines and silence. He was a billionaire, the CEO of Cole Enterprises, a man who had built his empire from nothing. But despite his wealth, he was alone. His parents were gone, his marriage had fallen apart years ago, and his so-called friends had all disappeared the moment he became ill. The doctors had told him that his chances of finding a matching donor were slim. He had accepted his fate, until a miracle arrived in the form of a young nurse's selfless act. The surgery was successful, and weeks later, Clara was back on her feet, tending to other patients. She never mentioned her donation. It was something she kept private, humble, between herself and God. Ethan, however, was determined to find out who his donor was. He felt indebted to the unknown soul who had given him another chance at life. His assistant told him the donor had chosen to remain anonymous, but Ethan's curiosity was relentless. One day, while walking through the recovery ward for a follow-up appointment, he noticed a familiar nurse helping an elderly patient into bed. Her face was gentle, her voice soft, and her presence radiated something pure. It was Clara. He didn't know it yet, but fate had just brought them face to face. Ethan started noticing her everywhere, the way she comforted crying patients, the way she worked late without complaining, the way her smile made even the sickest patients feel a little better. He started requesting her as his nurse during checkups, just to be around her kindness. Clara, unaware of who he really was, treated him like any other patient. She thought he was just a quiet man recovering from a tough surgery. He didn't flaunt his wealth or power. There was something in his eyes that seemed lonely. Over time, they began to talk. Small conversations about life, regrets, and second chances. Clara told him how she believed every act of kindness rippled out into the world, and Ethan found himself touched in a way he hadn't been in years. One day, as Clara adjusted his IV, Ethan asked softly, "Why do you care so much for others, even when they don't notice?" She smiled gently, "Because once, someone cared for me when I thought I didn't deserve it. It changed everything." Her words stayed with him. A few weeks later, Ethan was discharged from the hospital. He offered to thank the medical staff, but Clara politely declined the invitation to the celebration dinner. She was never comfortable around wealth or luxury. She preferred quiet gratitude over grand gestures. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he owed her more than words. So he began to look into her life, discreetly, respectfully. What he discovered broke his heart. Clara lived in a tiny apartment on the outskirts of the city. She worked double shifts to pay for her younger brother's college tuition. Her car barely ran, and yet she still donated to the local shelter every month. She had nothing, but she gave like she had everything. Ethan was deeply moved. He realized that no amount of money could buy the purity of her soul. He wanted to help her, but not as a billionaire writing a check. He wanted to help her as a man whose life she had changed. Months passed, and Clara's life returned to normal, until one morning, her hospital director called her into the office. "Clara," he said, smiling, "we've received a large anonymous donation. The new free clinic downtown, the one you've been advocating for, it's been fully funded. And it's being named after your mother." Clara was speechless. Tears welled in her eyes. Who did this?" The director just smiled. "The donor wishes to remain anonymous." Clara walked out of the office, her hands trembling. That evening, she visited the new clinic site. The sign above read, "The Maria James Community Health Center." Her mother's name. As she stood there in disbelief, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "You once gave someone a second chance at life. Maybe it's time someone gave that back to you." She turned around, and there he was. Ethan, standing under the fading sunlight, his eyes soft and full of gratitude. "You," She whispered. You were the patient. He nodded. Yes, you saved me, Clara. Not just my life, but my soul. I spent years thinking money could fill the emptiness inside me. But you taught me what real wealth means. Tears streamed down her cheeks as he stepped closer. I didn't do it for recognition, she said. I know, he replied. That's what makes it even more beautiful. Over time, Ethan and Clara grew close, not because of their past connection, but because of the quiet, genuine bond they built. He started volunteering at the clinic she ran. Together, they worked to provide free care for people who couldn't afford it. One evening, as they walked through the clinic's hallway, Ethan stopped and said softly, I used to think saving a company made me powerful. But saving a life, your way, makes me human. Clara smiled. Then maybe it's time we start saving more. He took her hand. Together, she nodded. Years later, the clinic expanded across several cities, helping thousands. People called it the Second Chance Foundation. But for Ethan and Clara, it was simply a reminder that kindness can heal more than just bodies, it can heal hearts. And sometimes, the greatest miracles don't come from wealth or success, but from the selfless act of one person willing to give a part of themselves to save another. Moral: true love and purpose are born from compassion. Sometimes, the richest hearts belong to those who have the least to give, and they change the world simply by caring.